Hello, stationery friends. Hard to believe that it is the end of 2024. My annual tradition is Boxing Day or a couple days after Christmas. I like to take my traveler's notebook and update it for the upcoming year with respect to the planner inserts that I'm going to be using, as well as any other stationery updates with respect to the accessories, as well as the Catchall Notebook that I like to use in my traveler's notebook. But I'm going to be talking a little bit about how I plan to use the planners. That's hilarious. How I plan to use the planners, as well as the little bit of tweaks and updates that I've done to the traveler's notebook. This is all based on my traveler's notebook haul from earlier on in the year, and you can see that video up here. And this is all with respect to the Traveler's Company Traveler's Notebook setup. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. I've experimented quite a bit with different planner setups throughout the year with respect to Hobonichi Teisho A6s, the Hobonichi Weekly, a few of the other alternatives, and I always gravitate back towards the Traveler's Notebook. Now, for those of you who are about to comment, Frank, why don't you just try the Sterling ink offering, and it ticks off all the boxes that I'm going to be talking about in here. Fair point, and I love their products from a financial perspective, where I live here in Canada. Getting a Sterling ink notebook up to me, even on sale, was a little bit more cost prohibitive than just picking up the Traveler's Notebook offerings with respect to the weekly memo, which I'm going to be talking about, and a couple of other refills. Getting the Traveler's Notebook, Traveler's Company offerings was still cheaper than getting a notebook from Sterling Ink shipped up to me here, just through discounts and things like that. So for all you Sterling Ink lovers out there, fantastic. All the power to you. I think it's a wonderful product, and I hope in the future, when I am not under certain cost prohibitions, I would definitely be taking that up. One of the things that I really liked about the exploration of the Hobonichi books or planners that I was kind of churning through this year was the monthly overview. I had gravitated away from this in the past few years, and experimenting with the Hobonichi, I really enjoyed it. And typically I have a monthly overview set up on the wall beside me on my desk, but I really like the idea of reintroducing the monthly calendar into my Traveler's Notebook and keeping it on the go with me. Probably another question that comes up is, well, why don't you just use your digital calendar and keep track of everything there? It's just not how my brain works. Again, for those folks who are really good with digital calendars and digital systems, all the power to you. It just doesn't work for me. I'm very much an analog guy, pen to paper. That's how I remember things, and that's effectively how I track things. So having the monthly overview for me was really, really key and important. Let's spend some time updating the covers of both the weekly memo and the monthly refills here, and then I'll come back to how I actually do the planning within the weekly memo. I've already gone ahead and put one of the key refills in here, which is a little bit different from past years. This is the monthly refill or insert, and this is dated. This is pre-populated. This is the 2025 setup, which was available a few months ago. One of the things that you will get in the annual offerings from the Traveler's Notebook is these customized sticker sets, which have these tabs. I spent a little bit of time already adding the tabs here, and I've decided to put the tabs down the side for the monthly refill that I've got in here. My weekly memo typically has the tabs across the top. Because I wanted to distinguish which one was the monthly and which one was the weekly memo in my Traveler's Notebook really quickly, I decided to keep the monthly down the side. Now that's probably going to cause a slight annoyance just because of the fact that this elastic may or may not interfere with the tabs on the side. Right now I don't think it will, just because of my zipper pouch having a nice little soft cushion there. However, it is a consideration, and if you're very finicky about that kind of stuff, that's something to keep in mind. So taking the sticker pack apart, I've got a few different options for stickers. This guy right here is kind of a pocket pouch, and I used to use it quite a bit. It just sits on the front sleeve or front cover or inside the front cover, and it's effectively a sleeve. I don't really have a use for it anymore. It just comes with the sticker pack. Interesting, but not for me. So I'm just going to set this one aside. The other thing in the sticker pack here is the tabs, which I've already shown, or I've already put onto my monthly. I'll show you how I put it onto my weekly here. They've got tab sizes for the regular standard size and then the passport size in here. And a couple other things with respect to what's included in here. You've got kind of these standard stickers or icons, and then dot stickers as well. I'm going to set all this aside. What we're going to be using though is the dry transfer, and then the stickers that also come with the sticker pack here. Now, the theme this year in the sticker pack is Love and Trip. And so I'm going to do a bit of a mix. I've also been experimenting with creating some of my own stickers and just printing it on my printer. These are AI generated with my ideas in terms of what would make really good stickers here. So throw in some background music, speed up the video as we crush through getting my monthly setup here. You know, I'm going to keep the monthly cover setup simple from a sticker's perspective. I don't think I want to add too much more than that. I just like the idea of this tree of life, the meditation and contemplation on time, this Latin phrase, tempus fugit, and then just a reminder to be kind. And as one is going through the year, just keeping in mind, look, it's really just about being kind and generous to people who cross your path. So I'm going to leave it at that. I really like it. I might add a few more flourishes throughout the year. When you get these weekly memo setups here, you get 2 notebooks, one for every 6 months. So we're going to go ahead and start with the January to February. Oh, you know what? I should maybe put one more sticker on my monthly. Sorry. Just occurred to me I kind of like doing this one here. There. It's kind of funny from our perspective of just a little bit of mishmash here. January, February, March, April, May. Now, for those of you who are probably a little bit more OCD than I am, although it is kind of driving me nuts a little bit, I should have really taken some care in spacing out the tabs here. My May and June are overlapped a little bit. I won't notice in the big picture. Should have just really paid attention to some of the spacing. I was trying to do it pretty fast on camera here. Mistakes are made, and it's good to let these things go and really focus on what's important, which is the fact that I can see the tabs pretty easily. So we're going to leave that. Now we're going to get some stickers on the cover going. Going to go big right off the bat. So I've got a couple of different options that I've been thinking about. I think I'll go with that. know what, we're going to keep it nice and simple at that. I like that. We're going to go ahead and stick it in. So there's my monthly and then my weekly. I really like that setup. I think it's really speaks to the themes I have in mind for the upcoming year and viewing things right now. A little bit minimalist, a little bit simpler. Certainly when you compare it to a little bit more busy, I'm not enjoying the simplicity of heading into 2025 and keeping it just very focused. So I like that. I like that look. And then the last cover to update is my catch-all. I might as well go ahead and do that since I'm here. So I've got a couple of different options. Again, these are AI generated, kind of just like the goat. I'm a Capricorn. I like goats, I always have. But I also love the mountains, so I think we're gonna keep with that theme there. I'm gonna leave it at that for now and just keep it simple. Now that that's all done, the covers are set up and ready to go. Let's talk about how I plan to use the Traveler's Notebook, both in terms of the planner setup and then the catch-all there. One of the things I really like to do with my monthly is plan ahead and obviously get down appointments and events that are fairly important to keep in mind. Here's an example of December, and not all of this is real. This is just something I did. One of the things I like to do is highlight time off, highlight kind of big blocks or big multi-day events, just using a highlighter that I keep in my bag or in my everyday carry shoulder bag there. And then other things I write in blue are typically events, appointments, engagements that are just pertaining to myself, which I'm already going to probably contradict myself as I say this, but I'll give you an example. Blue would be doctor appointment at 9, that's for me, whereas green typically is family events, choir, concert. Even though this is technically a neighborhood eve Christmas party here, and then primary dinner, those are technically family events or broader social engagements. They should have been color-coded green, but I ended up coding it blue just because the neighborhood eve party, I was the one who was doing all the cooking, and same thing with the Christmas dinner. I was doing all the cooking, so I just decided to make sure it was personalized to me. This notes section in the bottom, I typically just write big events or big to-do lists, monthly to-do lists from a really high level. What am I trying to get done this month? Plan for the big family dinner, get your gift shopping done early. I won't be very prescriptive with respect to specific tasks or relisting all the specific appointments. That's what these boxes are for. But it's more just to highlight some of the themes, some of the big picture thinking and tasks, I suppose, that I'm trying to get done within that month. So that's how I plan to use the monthly. I also, if I'm out and about and I'm making appointments or engagements with other people, I will just flip to the appropriate month, and using my fountain pen, I will just scribble it down in there. But let's spend some time talking about the weekly, because this is my favorite, and this is my workhorse, the weekly memo. The weekly memo is exactly as it sounds, a weekly overview and a memo page there. And I'm going to pull over an example from my other notebook or refill, only because I've got some personal events that I don't necessarily want to share with the internet, but I thought I'd go ahead and create a bit of a mock-up here in terms of what a weekly memo looks like in my life and how I use it. I've tweaked this system a little bit. If you've watched my planner setup from a couple of years ago, maybe it was even only last year. Anyhow, it roughly follows the same kind of guideline. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Some saying like that. But I have made tweaks to it. So on the left-hand side here is, like I said, the weekly overview. And on the right-hand side here, I've got the memo page. And I divide my memo page very much like this. I typically, in the top left-hand corner, will write an inspirational quote or theme for the week. You know, remember to plan, set the plan in motion, and adjust as needed throughout. Something like that. On the right-hand side here, I've got a tracker. So I've incorporated a few more trackers into the memo page here. I've got some iconography here with respect to the various things that I want to keep track of throughout the week. And what I was doing before was I was using these icons. I was drawing these icons on a daily basis right here. And I decided that I would just simplify it and keep everything just right up top and handy, recreate the days here, and just shade in what I've been doing. So for example, I've got cleaning dishes. I've been really trying to make sure that I've got an equal amount of responsibility in that area when it comes to household chores in our family. Evening meditation, morning meditation. Am I getting to bed on time? Am I waking up generally around that 4 a.m. mark? And if I don't, I tend to write down, what time did I actually wake up, right? Beside that, I've got working out. I've been really trying to incorporate working out back into my lifestyle this year, and definitely heading into 2025. Am I doing the kitty litter? Just making sure that I don't let it go too long. And then if I'm doing any video gaming. Video gaming has been something I've really strayed away from, and it's come back recently into my life, only because I'm a really big Indiana Jones fan, and the Indiana Jones Great Circle video game was released recently. And so, especially in the holiday season, I've been enjoying playing that game. I'm trying to keep track of how much I play with respect to, is it a daily thing or an every other day thing? Only because I don't want to create a new habit out of daily video gaming. It's not my jam. I'm really enjoying the game, but I will certainly gravitate away from it once the game is done. Now, what else do we have here in the memo side of things? Well, I typically do a little doodle or put some washi tape in this space here, but I reserve a little bit of space for spillover. Typically Mondays and Fridays, there's not much going on, maybe Fridays, in terms of the tasks that I'm going to be writing. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, kind of the meat of the week, especially Wednesdays and Thursdays, I've noticed just in my life that I'll have quite a bit of things that I'm trying to get done. And sometimes I need just a little bit of extra space to write a couple of tasks and spill over on this side here. So I tend to leave that space blank if I'm getting towards the end of the week and I haven't used that space. I'll put in some washi tape or doodle away in that area. So it just gives me a little bit of extra space to play around with. On the right hand side, I typically will list out the tasks for the week ahead on a Sunday, all the known tasks. And if I'm carrying over tasks from previous weeks or from within my week, I'll list that all down. And then I'll leave a little bit of space down here with respect to added tasks 1, 2, and 3. As I'm going through the week and I've got new tasks that I want to keep in mind, I'll add that down there. And then sometimes I've got a few tasks that aren't necessarily like specific to-dos, more general things. So not quite a task. I call bank for update on whatever. I'm just totally making stuff up. I'll add that in here. And then if I've got a new task with respect to something that I haven't added throughout the course of the week for that week, but it's really geared towards the week ahead or the month ahead, I'll list that down here so that I can carry it over from week to week just so I don't forget about it. Maybe that was a bit confusing. Let me list that again. So known tasks that I'll write down every Sunday for the week ahead. And as I'm going through the week, if there's more tasks that crop up for that week, I'll add those tasks underneath. And then not quite a task, so any general activities, but I want to keep in mind that I need to kind of just be aware of, I'll write that down. And then new tasks are generally tasks not pertaining to this week, but for the weeks ahead or the months ahead. So this is kind of how I keep track of everything on a week-to-week basis. Now moving further down, I've got another tracker here. What I'll do is I'll split this page up, this part of the page up into the days spread out in the middle. And then what I've been really enjoying a lot lately is reading. Because of my nature, I suppose, and how my mind works, I tend to have quite a few books on the go. So I'll list those books, book 1 through 7 right now. There's 7 books that I'm reading. And which days I'm reading them, just so that I've got an idea of which ones I'm progressing, which ones I'm going to drop, or if there's one that just isn't getting any attention, or if there's was days where I just didn't read. I like to keep track of that. And then when it comes to some health stuff, some of the medication that I'm taking, and making sure that I am aware of when I'm taking medication and if I'm forgetting to take medication. I'm generally bad with meds and timing and things in general, which is, I suppose, ironic. Inspirational quotes, tracker, tasks, doodles, spillover, and more trackers. Now, when it comes to what it looks like in the actual weekly, I'll write my tasks for the week ahead, like I said, over here, and then I'll start pulling things over into the day. So say it's a Monday, I'll write down task 1, task 2, and task 3. Maybe not quite a task, just something that I'm supposed to make sure I get, or make a phone call or something like that. That isn't quite a task, but just, hey, catching up with my sister or something like that. I'll write that down on the right-hand side. Maybe you can see it. There's little lines here that kind of split this box into two. So on the right-hand side, it's always going to be task-oriented. On the left-hand side, it's going to be event-oriented or appointment-oriented. That way I've just differentiated kind of how I'm keeping track of events and calendar appointments versus an actual activity or a task that I'm supposed to be getting done. And as I'm going through the tasks, what I'll do is I'll put a line through it if I've completed the task, or I'll put in a filled in arrow if I'm moving it to the next day. I might get there on a Tuesday and realize I haven't done task 1, so I'll put a line, an arrow there and pull it over to task 1. Pull it over to Tuesday here. I will take a look at the other tasks and just decide which task that I'm trying to do that day and cross out, and get done and cross out. Now, not quite a task 1. Sometimes I'll have these arrows that are not filled in. And what I'm doing there is I'm just probably pulling it over to consideration, like just an area of, okay, this is not quite a task 1. I'm going to put that over here. It doesn't have to be done. It's not priority, but I want to be aware of it. So that highlights to me that I'm moving it over to a week ahead or a month ahead, and I'm writing it down here. And it's just something to keep in mind. It's not a priority for this week specifically. And looking on the left-hand side here, what I tend to do is, like I said, keep track of events. So my own appointments or events, known event, like or coffee with so-and-so. And then in green, I'll keep track of family events just so I have an awareness of it and what's going on. So wife event, in terms of my wife's got an appointment or something. Kid event at 7. That probably means I'm dropping them off, but it's focused on my kid. Work appointment, so not necessarily pertaining to my own personal goals, but it's somewhat work related. So I got to keep that in mind. I have a separate planner for work, and my work planner is generally just mitigated or planned rather through Outlook. But sometimes there's a big enough thing that I need to be aware of that's outside of work hours that I will list it in green here. And that's basically how my entire week will look, is keeping track of my family events and my own personal appointments and events throughout the week. And that'll be all down the left-hand side, tasks down the right-hand side. This system has worked really well for me. I've been using it largely for the last 5-6 years, and it hasn't failed. It's been really, really wonderful in terms of how I'm kind of navigating week on week. I've tweaked it just a touch this year with respect to keeping a few more trackers and having to, I guess, remind myself what I'm keeping track of. But the meat and the system itself is fairly identical year on year. The only other thing I suppose I've really distinguished here is pulling the tracking on a daily basis over to weekly, and then really making sure that I've got the events in mind. And what I'll do is obviously flip back to my month for that week and see, oh yeah, if I've got any upcoming events for that week, I'll make sure that I'll list that in green or blue appropriately in here. And my catch-all, we should chat about this a little bit. My catch-all is exactly what it sounds like. It is a catch-all. One of the things that I should talk about right away is the fact that I'm using dot paper. This is a refill from Traveler's Notebook, Traveler's Company themselves. I've talked about how much I really like the lightweight paper from Traveler's Company in the past, and I decided to stick with dot this year for 2 reasons. One, the lightweight paper, you get so many more pages. It's beautiful tomoe paper, but I found that indexing my Tomoe paper, my lightweight paper refills just became a bit cumbersome. So I'm actually intentionally restricting myself to fewer pages within this refill. And you do get fewer pages. The lightweight paper is like 120-ish, if I remember correctly, somewhere around there. Maybe it's even more. Whereas the dot paper is only going to give you 64 pages in here. It's beautiful fountain pen friendly paper. I had toyed with the idea of a Kokoyu Flex notebook in here. It's a beefy notebook, considerably thicker than this. And I experimented with it. Unfortunately, it was not very fountain pen friendly, so decided to stick with the dot. The second reason I decided to go with the dot as opposed to lightweight, the lightweight is blank. I love blank pages. I think it gives me a canvas to really operate from. However, I just decided that I wanted some structure and rigidity, and even though I said that I could never understand how folks could only see dots or grids in their paper if they were using that kind of form, I really forced myself in the last month to just focus on using dot and grid paper, to seeing if I could get beyond that, and I did. There's no particular real reason. I have what I consider, maybe I'm being probably overly ambitious in saying this. When I use blank paper, I tend to space things out pretty well by myself. But if I'm doing things fast and on the go, which is what this notebook generally is, sometimes that spacing gets compromised. So I figured I'd maintain a 5mm dot spacing in here. So that's my catch-all. This is my weekly, and this is my monthly, all in one traveler's notebook. I like to have just one. I think it's really, really good for me in terms of just keeping things simple. This stays in my backpack, in my shoulder bag, or on me in my hands all the time. It's my daily driver. However, things might be changing in 2025 because I might have a pocket solution being contemplated in the background. Oh, sorry, one more thing I should say about the catch-all. The other reason I feel comfortable going with the dot grid and reducing the number of pages is because the catch-all really used to be, my own personal highlights, personal quotes. And as I was reading, I was also using it as kind of a commonplace. And what I realized is I was commonplacing so many things inside my catch-all. It started becoming quite burdensome, where it was really hard to distinguish, not hard to distinguish, it was just a little bit more tedious to distinguish what was personal, my own personal reflections versus a quote or a passage from a book, or some ideas with respect to, Stationery for this channel or any other venture or avenue I'm working on. And so I decided to take all the commonplace elements out of the catch-all. Now, don't get me wrong, from time to time, if I've only got this notebook, I might still write down the phrase or quote or whatever passage I'm reading from a book. But the idea is to minimize that as much as possible. Ideally, I'll be using my commonplace notebooks, which I'll talk about in another video. And I've got a few of those set up now with respect to specific topics. I think with the increased amount of reading that I've done this year, it just seemed very natural to make sure that I simplified my catch-all to, effectively gratitude journaling is what I'm going to be doing quite a bit of in my catch-all. On-the-go thoughts and ideas, just to scribble that down and flush them out in other notebooks. General anecdotes or amorphisms, things like that. Some definitions that I'm trying to keep track of as well, and also the weather and the time that I woke up. I think the idea really here is just to make sure that the catch-all is constrained to contemplation and my own thoughts and processes in here. Now, let's talk about the accessories. So you will have noticed that my pens have changed a little bit on my Traveler's Notebook setup here. I am known for talking about the Kaweco Brass Sport, which always resides on the Traveler's Notebook, and that has disappeared, as well as my Pilot Vanishing Point, which has also disappeared. I decided this year that I really wanted to use my Lamy 2000 in a fine, and my Pilot Custom 823, which is in a medium. Both of these are amazing pens and didn't quite get as much use in my collection last year, which is when I acquired them. So I want to use them quite a bit more. I really want them to become great daily drivers, and they are. They work fantastic from that perspective. So these are the two pens that I'll be using consistently on my traveler's notebook moving forward. The Kaweco Brass Sport is sitting in my pocket at all times, which is, I think, fantastic because it's a great pocket pen. And the Vanishing Point I've repurposed into another everyday carry notebook, which I'll be talking about in a different video. The zipper pouch stays the same, carries my cards. I use this as a wallet. I'm not going to open the sleeve up just because I've got my cards in there, but it has my different cards in here. It's got a ruler as well and a couple of other things that I keep in the zipper pouch, but I really like just the fact that it also adds a little bit of a cushion when I'm writing in here. And then one of the things that I've really simplified is I used to have a file folder in the back of my traveler's notebook. I've decided just to keep the plastic board here, just whenever I need that, and get rid of the file folder. I've got a different system or a notebook set up for the on-the-go papers and things like that I'm planning to keep, which again, I'll talk about in a different video. I'm doing a really good job of foreshadowing, I suppose, for future videos here. I've gotten rid of the page anchor as well. I'm using that on a different notebook. I'm just keeping it simple with one brass clip from the Travelers Company in here. So 3 refills in my Travelers notebook. Is it chunky? Perhaps just a touch, but I like that. I think it adds a lot of character and beauty, and I think it looks great in my hands. Every time I look at this notebook, it brings a smile to my face. So there you go. This is my 2025 planner setup, my catch-all, and my daily driver Traveler's Notebook setup in general. I'm curious about you. What are you doing with your Traveler's Notebooks for 2025 and your planner setups? Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this video was a little bit informative in how my brain works and how I set things up, and if it's a help to you, I'm glad. Take care. Have a wonderful 2025 and a wrap up to 2024. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Bye for now.